Ukraine's president says Vladimir Putin wants the rest of the Donetsk region as part of a ceasefire deal. Vladimir Zelensky repeated his position that Ukrainian forces would not withdraw from territory that they now control. Fighting has raged in Donetsk since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion 3.5 years ago. On Friday, Mr. Putin is due to meet US President Donald Trump in Alaska for talks on the war in Ukraine. European leaders have been warning against a dictated peace deal that would endanger Ukraine's future existence.
Ukraine cannot lose this war. No one has the right to put pressure on Ukraine when it comes to territorial concessions or other decisions that would reek of capitulation.
On Monday, President Trump signaled that a peace deal would include Russia and Ukraine swapping territory. But that idea begs lots of questions. Here's a closer look.
The front line in Ukraine. Russia pushing forward at the cost of thousands of lives every week, aiming to take territories it claims as its own. US President Donald Trump has weighed in.
Well, you're looking at territory that's been fought over for 3.5 years with, a lot of Russians have died, a lot of Ukrainians have died. So we're looking at that, but we're actually looking to get some back and some swapping. It's complicated.
But what territory can actually be swapped? Like Trump says, it's complicated. This was Ukraine before 2014, when Russia took the Crimean Peninsula by force. That same year, Russian-backed Ukrainian rebels seized control of territory in the regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, starting a bloody conflict that simmered until 2022, when Russia launched its full-scale invasion. Months later, Russian forces controlled parts of Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson. After staged referendums on joining Russia were held in the occupied part of these territories, Moscow declared they were now part of the Russian Federation, despite the fact that Russia only controlled part of the regions, which is still the case today. Meanwhile, Ukraine is still fighting in Russia's Kursk region, which it wanted as a bargaining chip, but holds only a tiny sliver of land there. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has very little room to maneuver in any negotiations over trading land for peace. Ukraine's constitution forbids breaking up the country's territorial integrity, and changing its territory would require a nationwide referendum. But Russia also has limited legal options. A 2020 constitutional amendment prohibits the surrender of any part of official Russian territory, which now includes much of Ukraine, even though only a few countries recognize Russian sovereignty there. As the war drags on, these legal hard lines leave both sides with significant obstacles to swapping any territory, making the task of sorting out any kind of exchange extremely complicated.
Let's get more on the Russian aspect of these talks with Konstantin Eggert, who's DW's Russia analyst. He joins us from Munich. Welcome, Konstantin. What does Russia want from Friday's talks?
Phil, hello. I think that there are three goals. One is actually to impress on the world, and especially on the domestic audience, that there are only two people that decide not only the fate of this war, but the fate of the world. This is Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Goal number two, not to give away anything at all during these talks. Or if there is a decision to give something away, it should be ephemeral and completely meaningless. And number three, to keep the American administration talking to the Kremlin, preferably one-on-one, so as not to let the whole situation spin off into massive sanctions and a barrage of other American restrictions. That's, I think, the three goals that Putin we can safely say that Putin has before the Alaska summit.
Okay, I look at that and I think you could sum that up as control, impressing the world, giving away nothing substantial, and keeping Trump talking. As part of that control, I'm seeing reports of potential new Russian offensives ahead of Friday's meeting. What does that tell us?
Well, if there are preparations for such offensive, I think it will complicate the whole thing, because It is supposed, or at least Trump thinks, that actually his advances to Putin will lead to a certain pacification or a certain calming down of the situation on the front. But on the other hand, although I feel it's better to ask military experts that see situation on the ground better than I, we haven't seen massive Russian offensives recently. What we've seen is incremental progress by the Russian forces, step by step, meter by meter. But frankly, I'd be really surprised if in the coming 48 hours, Putin launches a major offensive, because I think that could really wreck the whole project of having talks with Trump on the 15th.
What about this idea of land swaps, which we've heard so much about over the last few days? Donald Trump talking about both sides giving up land. How has that idea been greeted in the Kremlin?
Well, so far, what we've seen and what we've heard is that the Kremlin not only does not intend to give away anything that it managed to wrestle from Ukraine, but Putin demanded, for example, complete Ukrainian withdrawal from 4 Ukrainian regions, 4 oblasts, which are not fully controlled by the Russians. So essentially, on the Russian side, I don't think there's going to be any conversation about any kind of giving up any land. As for President Zelensky, then I think he already said that Ukrainian constitution does not let him, and that's true, to swap or give away even 1 square meter of Ukrainian land. So I do not think that the thing that the sides are going to start with is going to be some kind of major land deals. If it ever comes to fruition, it's not going to be finalized. It's not going to be basically decided upon during this summit. If it will, I mean, I'd be very much surprised.
And this meeting, of course, happening without Ukraine. How important was that for Putin that Kyiv be kept out of these talks?
Extremely important. As I said at the beginning, Phil, Putin wants to be seen, and it is especially at home, and especially among peoples, countries and leaders of the so-called global south, as essentially leader of the superpower number 2, with whom America wants to talk and who will only talk to America. And in this respect, the absence of Zelensky, of course, plays in the hands of Putin. It's another matter if you look at diplomatic niceties and kind of the unsaid, unofficial protocol issues. Of course, Putin coming to Trump means that Trump is the host, means that Trump is essentially number 1. So it's a Trump-Putin summit and not vice versa. So right. In this respect, there is an element of weakness in Putin's position, but you really have to be very much into this sort of diplomatic niceties to say it.
And so just to sum up briefly, Konstantin, do you see the most likely outcome of Friday's meeting as being just nothing substantial?
I think that is the point that I wanted to make. Yes, I think we cannot see some kind of super-duper breakthrough on the 15th. It's another matter that, as I said, Putin's interest and Trump's interest is actually to go on talking, and that may continue. And here the question is, what will be the role of Ukraine? Will Ukraine accept a situation in which its fate is decided behind its back? I do not think so.
Thank you. DW Russia analyst Konstantin Eggert. Volodymyr Zelensky has said he would reject any Russian proposal to pull Ukrainian troops out of the eastern Donbas region. The Ukrainian president warned that withdrawing Ukrainian forces would pave the way for Russia to conduct further offensives and deprive his country of defensive lines. President Zelensky repeated his position that territorial issues should only be discussed after Moscow agrees to a ceasefire. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and US Secretary of State Marco Rubio have been talking by phone ahead of Friday's summit between Presidents Trump and Putin in Alaska. Let's get a view on this from Ukraine. Kira Rudik is a member of the Ukrainian Parliament and leads the country's centre-right pro-European Holos Party. Welcome back to DW. Can we start with your thoughts on Friday's Trump-Putin meeting? Do you welcome Donald Trump taking such an apparently personal interest in your country's plight?
Hello, Phil, and thank you so much for having me. We are hopeful that finally President Trump will get tired of being humiliated by Putin and will go ahead with all the threats that he made on Russia. Because the main question remains the same. Even if there is a deal, who or what will make sure that Russia will keep their part of the bargain? What are the mechanisms into making sure that any deal will work if any of the existing mechanisms are not even working to pressure Russia for as little step as a ceasefire?
So what sort of guarantees would you like to see then from the United States in terms of ensuring that Russia adheres to this deal, if one is arranged?
It needs to be security guarantees from the United States and European partners that will strengthen Ukraine to the point where we will not have to be afraid for Russia to break their part of the deal. And that would again imply some military presence. It will imply arming Ukraine to the teeth. And we do not see that anyone is ready to that just yet. Because if you're ready to that, go ahead and we will have better chance in fighting with Russia than just pressuring them to adhering to the deal that is not even made.
Security guarantees from the United States, who of course will be at Friday's meetings, and from Europe, which countries of course will not be at the meeting, along with your own country, also not represented on Friday. Do you have any faith that anything will come out of Friday worth a damn?
Again, given that President Trump was not even able to bring Russia to agreeing to any single point of what he was asking for, we have little hope that anything agreed in Alaska will be first executable and second in Ukraine's favor. Not having Ukraine or Europe at the table of negotiation brings up simple question. How are you going to execute on this? And is it even going to be discussed that the main part of this deal is not political, it's executional? How do you go ahead and stop the war? How do you go ahead and ensure peace? It's a very complicated question. And of course, Ukraine and European partners needs to be present when this is discussed.
President Trump has suggested that Ukraine and Russia may have to give up land in order to secure peace. Is Ukraine's position still that this cannot be allowed to happen?
Of course, we are acting according to our constitution, where Ukraine is a sovereign country within the borders of 1991. However, again, if we are talking about the presence on the ground and if we are offered to cede some territories, my question again remains the following. What's the guarantee that Russia wouldn't go ahead a year in? This is exactly what we have seen, Phil, since 2014. We were offered to freeze the situation and look where it got us. In 2022, they launched a full-scale invasion. How do we make sure that the history doesn't repeat itself? How do we make sure that frozen conflict is not yet another plan of Russia to gather their troops, gather their forces, and attack us again? So we need to hear the proper answers to that. And I don't know if President Trump or honestly anyone right now has a very good answer to that.
Okay. It's interesting that you put it in those terms. So if I read you correctly, maybe giving up some land, but nothing is worth talking about unless you can guarantee that Russia keeps its end of the bargain. And that seems very much in line with some of the polling conducted by Gallop on this issue. Their polling suggests that about 69% of Ukrainians now favour a negotiated end to the war as soon as possible, with only 24% supporting the continuation of this fight until a complete victory. So that's a complete reversal from 3 years ago. Nothing is hard and fast, it would appear, except the need for any agreement to be guaranteed.
You see, it's very painful for people to ask people the question like, what are you ready to do for the war to end? And this is why I'm a bit skeptical about any kind of polling that can be done to the people under the bombardment. Of course, everyone wants that to stop. But I also want to bring your attention to the point that the majority of Ukrainian families right now either have somebody fighting at the front line or have lost someone. So we have already paid an enormous price. And so whatever has been agreed or whatever would be agreed with or without us will have to be sold to Ukrainian people, and it will be very hard to do, honestly. So, Phil, let's see how things go. But again, right now, the main question is security guarantees. And if those are there, then we can discuss what are the terms, and then we can discuss of what would be legality and practical way of going ahead with it. These are all complicated questions, and there is no good answer to that. But what we definitely need to start with is ensuring that Russia would not be able to attack us again.
Okay. We spent, between us, we spent a lot of time focusing on whether Russia can be trusted, and that has been much of the narrative in the news and in the media. Can I ask you if you believe Donald Trump is to be trusted to guarantee Ukrainian safety in the future? Is Donald Trump the man who will stand by his word and stand by Ukraine if Russia does invade again in the future?
We cannot put our future in hands of just one man, right? We will have to have security guarantees that are supported by the US Congress and that will have a proper way of executing, no matter who is in the White House. Donald Trump is there for a limited amount of time, and he may say different things that the war wouldn't have started if he was in the office. But the truth is, we cannot rely on him or any other name. We need like a proper agreement that will be able to be executed no matter what the political situation in the United States or anywhere else would be.
Thank you so much for joining us again, Ukrainian lawmaker Kira Rudik. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's speak to Lisa Yasko. She's a member of the Ukrainian Parliament, representing the Servant of the People Party, which is the party of President Volodymyr Zelensky. Welcome to DW. Thank you so much for joining us. Can I start by asking you whether you're looking ahead to Friday's Putin-Trump meeting in Alaska with hope or with fear?
Oh, definitely with fear. There is no hope. There is no hope for a very long time, and any speculations and any conversations, possible deals or disinformation regarding any possible peace without Ukrainians, that's very dangerous. And I can tell you that many Ukrainians are really scared of what will happen on Friday.
So you say that there is no hope. You've lived through more than 3 years of full-scale war. Are you seeing this summit that's potentially going to happen between Presidents Trump and Putin as a situation where these two men will be making decisions about your nation's future above your head, so to speak?
Well, I believe that they may try, but they will not succeed because the voice of Europe is sounding much more stronger, and the voice of Ukraine also sounds very loudly. So I believe that it's not possible to force anything on Ukrainian people, and we proved that for many, many times in our revolutions, in our fights for freedom. In this war, when we defend our land, and we don't only defend our land, it's about justice. So I believe that there will be attempts, there will be a lot of controversial, probably, statements on Friday, and then let's see.
President Trump has, of course, said that swapping territories will have to be part of a potential Ukraine peace deal. Tell me what the Ukrainian people feel about the idea of ceding territory in order to get peace.
I think Ukrainian people will never agree to this, but Ukrainian people are also very tired, and we want justice, but we also want to have probably some days, weeks, months without war. But it doesn't mean that we just want to leave things as they are right now, because we know what does it mean when for a couple of days or weeks there is no war, and then there is again aggression coming from Russia. We don't want Russia to keep fighting, keep invading, and we don't want this aggression to go on. So I think there is no very straightforward answer to this. It's
Lisa,
going to be very difficult.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You say that Ukrainian people are tired. I wanted to just talk about a recent opinion poll conducted by Gallop, which suggests that actually 69% of Ukrainians now favour a negotiated end to the war as soon as possible, and only 24% support continuing the fight until a complete victory. Now, that is, of course, an absolute reversal from 3 years ago. So does this suggest that Ukrainians maybe are now more ready to accept territorial losses in exchange for a lasting peace?
Well, this poll that you shows that Ukrainians are ready to support negotiations, but not territories exchange. That's completely different question. I believe that yes, for sure, Ukrainians are much more exhausted and tired because the life we all live in is absolutely crazy. Every city, every family suffers a lot. So of course, everyone wants to have some light, and we want to have some light of negotiations, some hope for negotiations. But I think that still people are quite naive, and they believe that maybe some magic will happen. But from the other side, after everything that happened in an Oval Office and afterwards, and with the hypocrisy of many actors, I also think that Ukrainians are very big realists right now.
Do you believe that President Putin would honour any potential agreement that was made?
I see that there is a clear sign that he's ready for something. He likes the idea to meet Trump on Alaska. That's very symbolic place, as we know. It used to be Russia, and I think Putin is enjoying it very much, the fact that they're going to meet there. And it looks as also on what happens now in the eastern part of Ukraine and near northeast, we see that Russians are moving a lot of military equipment. They intensify the war in some of the places. So they want to win more in these current days, which probably explains the fact that Putin is ready for something, because he believes that Trump will be ready to make a deal with him. But what kind of deal? We don't know.
What would a just and lasting peace look like for you?
Oh, just lasting peace for me would be going back to our territorial sovereignty, of course. But even more importantly is actually I want criminals who started this war. I want Putin and all these people who killed thousands and millions, actually, already Ukrainians, because we all suffered a lot. I want them to be accountable. I want them to pay a price. There is a tribunal, a criminal tribunal of aggression, and these criminals, war criminals, they have to pay the price for the war of aggression that they are doing.
Ukrainian lawmaker Lisa Yasko. Thank you so much, Lisa, for your time and for speaking to us today.